Hi there, Rabbi.
Hey, Joe.
You know, I am teaching my daughter how to drive, and she has had some lessons from school. And at the same time, I, of course, have my years of experience of not running into things. And one of the things that I discovered very quickly was that you are no longer supposed to hold your steering wheel at 10 and 3, and you're supposed to hold it at 7 and 4, which is completely awkward to me and against what my driving instructors used to tell me. And then the mirrors. You used to have your mirrors set so you could see the side of the car on the right and the side of the car on the left, and you had blind spots. And that's not true anymore. Now you have to set your mirrors, you have to lean over and set your mirror one way, and then lean over the other way and set your mirror the other way. And that's to eliminate blind spots. And I've tried it and it works, but I can't drive that way. I had to put it back to the way I knew and how I've been driving for the last 50 years. So that's an example of something that I knew that was completely right and is now completely wrong. What do we do about that? What am I crazy? Is that I
Well,
am crazy. Thank you.
yeah, you are, but it has nothing to do with this. That's a separate diagnosis. You just reminded me of a great episode on Car Talk. I grew up in Boston, and I remember listening to Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers. For me, it seems like forever, but people can Google how long Car Talk has been on the air. And one of their episodes, they gave lots of advice on cars and human beings. One of their shows, a young lady called and said, well, my father and grandfather told me that when I start my car, I should let it run till it warms up and then drive away. And of course, they made some jokes and laughed. And then they said, your father and grandfather are absolutely right for a 57 Buick, a 56 Chevrolet, a 58 Pontiac. They were absolutely right. However, for a car in the 2000s that's a computer with an engine, that's not what you want to do. You turn the car on, wait a moment, and drive away. And I have used their approach, and I'm going to use it now. What they said to her was, your father isn't wrong. Your father was right for the vehicles he was talking about. He's applying that knowledge to another vehicle that it doesn't apply to. And so we're going to look at your training. And the reason they're asking us to change our hands is because of the airbag that's in the middle of the steering wheel. If your hands are in the old position and the airbag goes off, you're going to blow out your arms and your shoulders and maybe break your arms. And my 56 Chevy didn't have an airbag. Neither did my Buick, neither did my Pontiac. So we were taught to put our hands in a certain place. Now our hands are being moved because of the danger of the airbag deploying. So you are absolutely right where you should put your hands. So next time you're in a 56 Chevy, you can put your hands where you used to. But when you're in a car with an airbag, we want to slide them further down the wheel. And you can visualize what would happen if our hands were in a higher position, if the airbag blows out. So you go, oh, wait a minute. So it's not right or wrong. It's, are we applying knowledge from another time to the present situation? And we hear a lot of that now in medicine with the vaccine. A lot of what people say about the vaccine is absolutely true 20 years ago, 10 years ago. It's absolutely true. But our DNA, all kinds of new cancer drugs being used genetically, and what's been changed, all the medicine and science, the chemistry has changed. So what we wanted to avoid with live vaccines or dead vaccines in the 50s, 60s, 70s, up until 10 years ago, was absolutely true. But to take that knowledge and apply it now is like driving a 50s car to a Lexus or any 20, 22, 21 car. Because of the computerized, the smaller radiator, because they run at a hotter temperature. It's a very different machine.
Okay, so, but how do we stay current with these things? The world is always changing. If I didn't try to teach my daughter how to drive, I would never know to move my arms on the steering wheel.
But you just answered your own question. You stay current. Uh, how many people learned computer languages that none of the machines exist in the universe anymore? It was, you were correct. You had computer skills. Go use them to get a job now. The idea is to stay current. Look, we're on YouTube. This didn't exist when I was younger. So what am I going to say? I shouldn't do it, or it's wrong? No. I think what the answer to your question is to stay current on things that are changing around us. More important is to acknowledge that things we did aren't wrong today. They're only inaccurate because we're applying something to conditions that no longer apply, or to machines that no longer apply. Or how many of us had dial-up modems? How many of us never even thought of the Wi-Fi as we know it? And yet we're using it, and we're using it effectively. And it's because we recognize that what worked for a dial-up modem doesn't work for my router. So why would I try to fix my router as if it was a dial-up modem? And that's what I got from Click and Clack. Not anyone's wrong. You step back and you say, the knowledge, what you're working on, doesn't apply to this item. Now, to a handsaw, it does. Crosscut rip saw is the same as it was 100 years ago. So the safety features and how you pull it hasn't changed because the saw hasn't changed. However, too often, Joe, people are giving me advice that's perfectly accurate, but not based on what we know in chemistry or science or in machines. Just like the modern car, it's not the same as a six-cylinder from the 50s.
But old knowledge isn't always obsolete, and it can always be applied to new things, can't it?
Yes, I'm not saying anything's obsolete. I'm just saying let's stop and look at what we're saying, what we're suggesting. So it's nothing. See, here we're right back again with right or wrong. It's not right or wrong. Does it apply to the present setting? And there are techniques in woodworking that apply. However, I'm watching all kinds of new measuring devices and jigs that never existed when I did woodworking. I don't do anything anymore. And I'm looking like, I wish that existed 20 years ago. I wish that existed 40, but it didn't. And so there are newer techniques, there's other equipment, nothing, we don't want to write anything off, and we're not going to dismiss anything. All I'm asking is what Click and Clack said. You're right for that time and for that machine. It just doesn't apply to this machine. In fact, like the steering wheel, it could be harmful.
Well, one thing that will never go out of style and will always be useful is your wisdom, Rabbi. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go back and look at my steering wheel and maybe revisit some of the manuals on how to crank the engine to get it to start correctly.
Exactly. So you don't break your wrist when it flips on. We have to be very careful when we crank our engines. Thank you, Joe.